Thank you very much, Sister Kut and Sister Chukan, for joining today's Sunday Pūjā. Now, without further ado, let's welcome Brother Ananda Fong to begin his Dhamma sharing. Brother Ananda Fong, please be invited.
Thank you, Sister. Let me perform a short puja. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. Today, we continue with the Mangala Sutta, particularly blessing number 16 and 17 on helping one's relatives, and number 17, blameless actions. Now, we go back to this important reminder that all of us want things to go in our favor. So in the sutta on what is desirable, what is welcome, the Buddha has declared that there are 5 things that are desirable, beloved, agreeable, but difficult to obtain in the world. And what are these 5? We all want long life, beauty, happiness, fame, and rebirth in heaven. Of these 5 things, House Lord, the Buddha declared that he does not teach that they are to be obtained through prayer, nor through wishing. If one could obtain them through prayer or wishing, who would not obtain them? So this is from the Ita Sutta. And the Sutta continues on this page. For a noble disciple, House Lord, who wishes to have long life, beauty, happiness, fame, and rebirth in heaven, it is not proper that he should pray for all these. He should rather follow a way of life that is conducive to all this that we want. Follow a way of life clearly indicates that we have to take action, do something concrete to build up, to support that we wish for. And what we wish for is being long life, beauty, happiness, fame, and rebirth in heaven. So by following such a path, he would obtain all these: long life, beauty, happiness, fame, and rebirth in heaven. So the Mangala Sutta itself gives us a formula as to what is blessed, in which we can do something for ourselves so that we can achieve all that. And today, we continue with blessing number 16, assistance or helpfulness to relatives. The previous sessions, we talked about helpfulness towards our family and so on. Here, we're talking about helpfulness or assistance to our relatives. Now, a quick revision. How is karma made? That is a very, very important question. And the Buddha, in the sutta from the 𝓤𝓾𝓷𝓷𝓷, book of 6, sutta number 63, the Buddha clearly said, intention, I tell you, is karma. Intending, one does karma by way of body, speech, and mind. And because of those actions that you performed earlier, in the previous lives, in the earlier part of this life, and continue to do in this life, you perform these actions, and these deeds have implications. And the Buddha, in yet another sutta from the 𝓤𝓾𝓷𝓷𝓷, book of 5, sutta number 57, declared, I am the owner of my deeds. So the performer, the one who did those actions, own those actions. Heir to my deeds. So you inherit your deeds. So what you have done in the multitude of previous lives and the earlier portion of this life, you inherit all those actions. You are responsible for those actions. These are my womb. So these determine, your prior deeds determine where you are born, into which family, into which father and mother you come to, who would be, and in the following, my relative, which is the topic of today's talk. So your deeds also determine who are your relatives. What do you mean by relatives? Your siblings, your uncles, aunties, even your father and mother, and further afield, the grandparents, your uncles, aunties. And may I dare to say, even some of your friends, which is further down the field. So who do you come across? Whether those relatives are very called supportive relatives or relatives that give you a lot of trouble. What kind of relatives do you get? And of course, your deeds also determine your refuge. Refuge is something in which you go to safeguard yourself, to protect yourself. An umbrella is a refuge from the hot sun, from the rain, or better still, run into a building to stay away from the hot weather or the wet weather, and so on. But of course, this refuge also covers spiritual refuge. We need guidance, we need instruction by the wise. So we go to the wise ones. But your deeds determine who do you get a chance to meet up with, to learn the techniques, learn the nature of natural laws that we can use. By learning such laws, the existence of such laws and how they operate, you can take care of yourself. You can work within those natural laws to make sure your life is more welcome, more desirable, more comfortable, more pleasant. And the Buddha summarizes, I shall be the heir of whatever deeds I do, whether good or bad. So clearly, back to the question of relatives. You inherit your relatives because of your prior actions. Now, in the commentary found in the website, the 𝓟𝓷𝓷𝓷 World, the author has mentioned, one has a duty to look after not only one's immediate family, but one's close and distant relatives too, by providing whatever assistance that they may require to live a comfortable life. They may need material help and also help and support during periods of illness and hardship. That most of us, we have encountered all this. Relatives can also be encouraged to develop wholesome qualities, such as conviction or confidence in the triple gem, Saddha, moral discipline, generosity, and wisdom. When relatives have passed away, meritorious acts could be performed in their name and dedicated to them for their benefit wherever they are. So the first two are things which we have probably done. That means in the here and now. But the third paragraph is of interest. Relatives can be encouraged to develop wholesome qualities. And this developing of wholesome qualities help them in the here and now, that means the balance of this life, as well in the hereafter. And of course, when they pass away, we try to perform meritorious acts, usually is dana and so on, so that we can perform it in their name and dedicate to them. So the next few slides, we will talk primarily about the aspect of encouraging them to develop wholesome qualities so that they can take care of themselves. So whenever they are in need, we cannot be providing them with all the material support because some of us are not that well off. So we need to teach them how to take care of themselves, the balance of this life as well as in the next life. We come back to this very important page. What did the Buddha teach, or what do Buddhas teach? Sabba papasa akaranang kusalasa upasampada sacitta paridapanang etang buddhana sasana. Dhammapada verse 183. Translated, the Buddha said that we should avoid all evil, we should do good, purify your mind. This is the teaching of the Buddhas. So clearly, this summarizes the principles, the 45 years of teaching of the Buddha, at least the Buddha we know, Gautama the Buddha, that all his suttas, all his lectures centered on these three principal actions that we can take for ourselves. That we should avoid all evil, we should do good, and then purify our mind. The Buddha also encouraged monastics as well as lay people. And in this particular sutta from the Iti-Vuttaka of the Khuddaka Nikaya, the Buddha encouraged the monks. There are these three grounds for making merit. So making merit is also important for monastics, not just lay people. What three? One should train in deeds of merit that yield long-lasting happiness, giving, virtue, mental development. And for regular Buddhists, the all familiar phrase, the three items, dana, sila, and bhavana. So by cultivating these three things, deeds yielding happiness, the wise person is reborn in bliss, in an untroubled, happy world. So clearly, this is yet another threefold formula in which we can put into action. That means follow our way of life so that we can get what we want. And of course, many Buddhists are familiar with these three kinds of giving. Amisa dana, meaning giving of requisites, example, food, lodging, etc., usually to monastics. Abhaya dana, giving of fearlessness or safety or protection from danger. And Dhamma dana, giving the knowledge of Dhamma, which is the noblest of amongst all gifts. And in Dhammapada verse 354, the Buddha mentioned, the gift of Dhamma excels all gifts. The taste of Dhamma excels all tastes. The delight in Dhamma excels all delights. The craving freed vanquishes all suffering. So clearly, of all the three kinds of Dhamma, Amisa Dana, Abhaya Dhamma, and Dhamma Dana, Dhamma Dana is the noblest amongst all gifts because they teach you how to take care of yourself instead of doing it for you. Amisa Dhamma, somebody has to provide food. It means you're dependent on somebody else, which is also important, but better if you can take care of yourself. Abhaya Dhamma, giving of fearlessness. Well, safety, protection, that is provided by somebody else. But Dhamma Dana, then you can take action by yourself to take care of yourself. And with respect to Dana, the Buddha in yet another sutta from the Iti-Vuttaka mentioned, if beings knew, as I know, the result of giving and sharing, they would not eat without having given, nor would they allow the stain of meanness to obsess them and take root in their minds. So clearly, this is an important aspect. And three pictures at the bottom show the performance of Pinta Cara. That means the lay community supporting monastics when they go on alms round. Pinta Cara means the monastics going on alms round. Now, yet in another sutta, the benefits of giving. Some people's view that a lot of religious practices are for the hereafter. This is actually not true. You can actually see the results here and now. Of course, some are for the hereafter. Even earlier, when we went through the puja, we reflected on the qualities of the Dhamma. And one of the quality, sandittika, is to do with the here and now. So in this particular sutta, the 𝓤𝓾𝓷𝓷𝓷 Sutta from the Anguttara Nikaya Book of 5, Sutta number 34, in summary, it says, it is not the case that I, generous 𝓤𝓾, well, this is a person called generous 𝓤𝓾 who was talking to the Buddha, that I, generous 𝓤𝓾, go by conviction or confidence in the Blessed One with regard to them. I know them too. I'm the one who gives, a master of giving, dear and charming people, and dear and charming to people at large. Good people, people of integrity, admire me. My fine reputation is spread far and wide. 𝓤𝓾 is generous, a doer, a supporter of the Sangha. When I approach any assembly of people, noble warriors, Brahmans, householders, or contemplatives, I do so confidently and without embarrassment. So this, in summary, are the list of results of one who does giving, not just mere occasional giving, but master of giving, which is declared by generous 𝓤𝓾 because he practices what the Buddha taught. Going in greater detail into the sutta, generous 𝓤𝓾 started that conversation with the Buddha by asking, is it possible, Lord, to point out a fruit of giving visible in the here and now? Now, fruit of giving, dana pala, made out of two words. Dana means giving, the fruit means pala. What do you mean by the fruit of giving? The results of giving. And the here and now, sandittikang, Well, the quality of the Dhamma, which is mentioned earlier. So the Buddha replied, it is possible, 𝓤𝓾𝓷𝓫, one who gives, who is a master of giving, is dear and charming to people at large. And the fact that who gives, who is a master of giving, is dear and charming to people at large. This is the fruit of giving, visible in the here and now. Now, just as a reminder, why am I going through this particular sutta? Talk about the results of giving. Well, we are trying to encourage our relatives, give them the tools, encourage them to practice giving. And the results are visible here and now, not just in the hereafter. Continuing, furthermore, good people, people of integrity, admire one who gives, who is a master of giving. And the fact that good people, people of integrity, admire one who gives, who is a master of giving, this too is the fruit of giving, visible in the here and now. Furthermore, the fine reputation of one who gives, who is a master of giving, is spread far and wide. And the fact that the fine reputation of one who gives, who is a master of giving, is spread far and wide, this too is a fruit of giving, visible in the here and now. Furthermore, when one who gives, who is a master of giving, approaches any assembly of people, noble warriors, Brahmans, householders, or contemplatives, he or she does so confidently and without embarrassment. And the fact that when one who gives, who is a master of giving, approaches any assembly of people, noble warriors, Brahmans, householders, or contemplatives, he or she does so confidently and without embarrassment. This too is a fruit of giving, visible in the here and now. Further, at the breakup of the body after death, now here the Buddha is referring to things that happen hereafter. One who gives, who is a master of giving, reappears in a good destination in the heavenly world. Well, in the earlier wish, the list in the Ether Sutta, 5 things that we wanted, rebirth in the heavenly realm, just giving alone already propels you to a good destination, a heavenly world. And the fact that at the breakup of the body after death, one who gives, who is a master of giving, reappears in a good destination, a heavenly world. This is the fruit of giving in the next life. Now, one thing to note here, the Buddha keeps on mentioning, master of giving. So even though we give, it is not a question of occasional giving, once, as some people would say, giving once in a blue moon, okay, or giving rarely. Here, the Buddha is referring to a person who gives, who is a master of giving. So clearly, this practice is to be done regularly, frequently, and becoming a master, of course, to become a master, to be proficient, practice makes perfect. So you have to give frequently and become an expert in giving. Then only these results become possible to you. So when this was said, General 𝓤𝓾𝓷𝓫 said to the Buddha, as for the 4 fruits of giving visible in the here and now that have been pointed out by the Blessed One, it is not the case that I go by conviction in the Blessed One with regard to them. I know them too. Now, this portion of the sutta is very important. Why? Frequently in philosophy, particularly in religion, a lot of sharers or teachers or monastic or lay often request the congregation to just believe them. Here, General 𝓤𝓾𝓷𝓫 is saying, it is not the case that I go by conviction, 𝓷𝓷. The word Pali word 𝓷𝓷, translated here as conviction, but frequently in many Dhamma sharings, in articles and so on, 𝓷𝓷 is rendered as faith. Faith means to trust somebody. And very often, sometimes, and the word faith has been corrupted in many what they call talks, because there is such a thing called blind faith. Faith without evidence. That means you blindly trust so and so because that person said so. So, and General 𝓤𝓾𝓷𝓫 says, it is not the case that I go by 𝓷𝓷, mere conviction. But with regard to them, I know them too. So General 𝓤𝓾𝓷𝓫 has gone beyond. Why? His faith, his saddha, conviction, is replaced not by the word faith, but by the word confidence. And as we know in general usage, confidence can only be gained by proof. That means proof is the confidence. That means you do it, you see the results for yourself, then you have conviction, you have confidence. So the other side of the meaning of saddha is not just mere faith, which is secondly can be easily tied to blind faith, but we are replacing it with the word conviction by confidence. Why? There is understanding, there is experience, there is knowledge. So once you have saddha in that fashion, you do not need to trust or believe the Buddha. Why? You know them. When you know them for yourself, you don't need to have faith in the Buddha because you know them. Okay, that is a key takeaway here. So Buddhists need to develop conviction and confidence through understanding and move from mere trusting, okay, without questioning, but performance, so that you know them, you understand them. You are the living proof of that situation. Now, continuing with the sutta, I'm the one, so General 𝓤𝓾𝓷𝓫, I'm the one who gives, a master of giving. Dear and charming people at large, good people, people of integrity, admire me. My fine reputation is spread far and wide. 𝓤𝓾 is generous, a doer, a supporter of the Sangha. When I approach any assembly, noble warriors, Brahmans, householders, or contemplatives, I do so confidently and without embarrassment. But when the Blessed One says to me, at the breakup of the body, after death, one who gives, who is a master of giving, reappears in a good destination, the heavenly world, that I do not know. That is where I go by conviction in the Blessed One. And this is very logical because General 𝓤𝓾𝓷𝓫 is still alive. He's talking to the Buddha. So whatever the Buddha has already taught him earlier, he has been a master of giving. He experiences, he knows the result. But with respect to the next life, of course, he hasn't died yet. Okay, so he doesn't know. So here he goes by confidence in the Buddha. And since the Buddha gave a lecture on earlier qualities of giving or results of giving, he knows that is the case. With that, he tries to extrapolate, and that gives him confidence in what the Buddha said. If what the Buddha said is true earlier, very likely what he forecasts to the future is also true. And that's why he says, that is where I go by conviction in the Blessed One. And the Buddha responded, so it is, 𝓤𝓾𝓷𝓫, so it is. At the breakup of the body after death, one who gives, who is a master of giving, reappears in a good destination, the heavenly world. Now, coming to yet another sutta, which we can share with our relatives so that they can help themselves here and now, as well as in the hereafter. And in the Sutta, 𝓟𝓾𝓳𝓪, in a way, happiness and welfare in our lives, from the Anguttara Nikaya Book of Ved, Sutta number 54, the Sutta centers about the Koreans. Koreans is a country. The Buddha's mother was from Korea. And Korea country is further north, further up the Himalayas than the Sakya kingdom. So now the Koreans have a town named Kakarapata, and 𝓟𝓾𝓳𝓪, the Korean, went to the Blessed One, and on arrival, having bowed down to the Blessed One, sat to one side. So as he was sitting there, he said to the Blessed One, we are lay people, enjoying sensuality, living crowded with spouses and children, using kasi fabrics and sandalwood, wearing garlands, scents and creams, handling gold and silver. Now may the Blessed One teach the Dhamma for those like us, for our happiness and well-being in this life. That means in the here and now. For our happiness and well-being in lives to come. So this request is very important. So it's asking for the Dhamma that can help support us in this very life, or at least in the balance of this life, as well as in lives to come. That means in the hereafter. And the following box is hearing. The Buddha responded, there are these 4 qualities that lead to a person's happiness and well-being in this life. Which 4? Being consummate in initiative. Here, consummate in initiative means not to be lazy, to be very enterprising, to go out and do the work needed. Being consummate in vigilance. Vigilance means to pay attention, not to be swindled, not to be robbed, not to be scammed. This is some aspect of vigilance. Admirable friendship. Well, we cannot do everything together by alone, rather. We need the help of friends, those of like-minded, those who have integrity. We support them, they support us. So work together as a group, what we call conscientious group. Maintaining one's livelihood in tune. That is signal for do not overspend. If you, whatever incoming, whatever earnings incoming, we definitely don't want our outgoing to be more than our incoming. That, to most people, I would say it should be common sense. But yet there are people, even in the 21st century, to talk about 2,600 years ago, people who live beyond their means. So this is advice that we can share with our relatives so that they can take care of themselves in this life, so that they can have happiness and well-being. Now, then the Buddha, after elaborating on the 4, which I will not go through, the Buddha mentioned there are these 4 qualities that lead to a lay person's happiness and well-being in lives to come. That means, in other words, in the hereafter. Being consummate in conviction. That means in confidence in the Dhamma. Being consummate in virtue. That means development of morality, sila. Being consummate in generosity. This is 𝓟𝓾𝓷𝓷. This is not dana, this is 𝓟𝓾𝓷, generosity. Dana means giving. Giving is, or dana is a subset of being generous. Being consummate in discernment, it means to be wise. But the first thing you want to be wise, how to be wise, is to question. You must ask questions. You must investigate, you must reflect what so-and-so advise you, but whether that one is reasonable, but is wise or not. Does it hurt yourself if you put into action? Does it hurt another person? Does it hurt both of us? And does it support us in our life? And so on. So discernment requires us to question, to have reflection, to consider. So these are the 4 things that promote happiness and well-being in lives to come. And of course, at the end of our relatives' lives, when they pass away, we do our duty, not just to our immediate family, but also to our relatives. Patidana, dedication of merits. Here, we do not use the word transference of merits. Okay, transference of merits is the wrong term, because merits are yours. You cannot minus from your account and transfer to another person. That goes against the teaching of the Buddha with regard to karma. So why do we dedicate merits? Because we have gratitude towards our departed relatives. They might have helped us, they may have taken care of us, and so on. So in this practice, one should perform meritorious deeds. So you must perform a wholesome act with pure and undefiled thoughts, so that merits could be generated and then dedicated or shared with the ancestors and departed relatives who may have been reborn as hungry ghosts, the lower plane existence. So in the Anguttara Nikaya, it is mentioned that parents wish for sharing of merits from their children once they are gone. That is, in case the parents are born as hungry ghosts, preferably when they are still alive, that we have shared the previous 2 suttas with them, so that they can take care of themselves, not just parents, but relatives, so that they can make merits for themselves, not dependent on us. Okay, so this act of patidana is in case they are born as hungry ghosts. If they are born as devas, all the better. And devas, and as devas, they don't really need our merits. So the patidana, dedication of merits, recital or reflection is that of idang vo nyatinang hotu sukita hontu nyatoyo. That is typically repeated 3 times to emphasize our intention. And the translation, may this be for you all departed relatives. May you relatives be well and happy. Notice in the literal translation, there is no mention of merits directly. The word Pali word for merit is called punya. There is no mention of transference, okay, literally. But the key word is may this. Why? The word may this or idang, the Pali word is idang, refers to a recently performed meritorious action or event, for like performing dana to the monastics and so on. So may this recent performance of wholesome meritorious action be dedicated to the departed relatives. And the departed relatives, if they are reborn as hungry ghosts, need to be aware of your intention to do all this. Need to witness your meritorious action, need to witness your intention to dedicate these merits. Then, and why is that? You want them to rejoice over this wholesome act that you have performed and you are thinking of them. When they rejoice, they generate merits for themselves. Okay, and thereby disqualifying them from living in the beta world. That means as hungry ghosts. And hopefully they pass away and go to a higher plane. So this particular verse is from the 𝓟𝓾𝓷𝓷 Sutta. Now moving on, the blessing number 17 in the Mangala Sutta, a blameless life. Now back to the commentary from the 𝓟𝓷𝓷𝓷's World website. Engaging in blameless action that will not harm oneself or others. That, but will be for the benefit and welfare of oneself and others is a great blessing. If one observes the 5 precepts of morality diligently and avoiding engaging in any of the 10 unwholesome actions, that will naturally result in blameless actions. Now, the Buddha's advice to us before we perform any action is to consider whether one's action will cause any harm to oneself, any harm to others, or any harm to both oneself and others. Now, participation in social service activities for the benefit of one's community and society in general is also a worthy and blameless action. So clearly, there are a few aspects to consider. One is that the observance of the 5 precepts. And if you are able to widen it from 5 precepts to the 10 unwholesome actions, that's even better. Now, the principle in almost all the teachings by the Buddha on the path of liberation, the path to liberation, centers on these 2 terms, refraining and cultivation. And in the Mangala Sutta, the Buddha says, refrain from what is unwholesome. Be steadfast in good qualities. Now, this again is from the Mangala Sutta. Now, refraining. This is the same as the Dhammapada verse 183, that we should avoid all evil and do good. So this is still reflected in yet another sutta. In many suttas, the Buddha emphasizes this aspect. Now, how do we cultivate the morality? I mentioned the 5 precepts, Pancha Sila, which we have observed and recited in the puja earlier. And summarizing, that we should abstain from killing living beings, should abstain from taking what is not given, we should abstain from sexual misconduct, we abstain from false speech, we need to abstain from taking intoxicants. There are many suttas that mention this, and this particular list happened to come from the Anguttara Nikaya Book of 8. Okay, the rewards of merits for observing these 5 precepts and others. But the 5 precepts, you notice, is talking about abstention. As the Buddha in the previous page, the Buddha has mentioned that we should avoid all this. Why? By avoiding this, we do not make more unwholesome karmic energies that hurt us, make our life unpleasant in the balance of this life and in the future. So, but you are not cultivating, you're not developing, you're not doing any good from just mere abstention. So you need to continue with the practice to move up the ladder. Then we need to practice the 5 ennoblers. Now, ennoblers is basically made of ennoble, some actions that make us more noble. Well, the precepts help us to avoid hurting ourselves by committing all those, the list at the bottom. The ennoblers are the direct opposite of this list of 5. It makes us more noble. So that means to abstain from killing. Ennoblers means to save lives. And of course, some of us will say, oh, I'm not in the medical profession. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a nurse. How can I save lives? Well, there's such thing called learning first aid. Okay, things like donating blood, donating your organs, committing to donate your organs. Know procedures like how to perform CPR if someone is in trouble. Having train yourself in the Heimlich maneuver when somebody is choking and suffocating right in front of you. So those are some of those actions we can do as lay people who are not in the medical profession. Of course, if you're in the medical profession, then you have more in-depth training, you're more expert, and you can render greater service. So this page covers abstention or avoiding, and the 5 ennoblers is cultivation. So we need to cultivate so that we bring ourselves up to a higher level in terms of developing our sila. Now, with respect to the first precept, abstention of from killing in the 5 precepts, in the Vanija Sutta, also from the Anguttara Nikaya book of 5, the Buddha says that certain occupations cause problems, and the monks, the Buddha mentioned, a lay follower should not engage in these 5 occupations or 5 trades. What 5? Trade in weapons. Well, what do weapons do? They kill, they hurt. Then the other one is trading in living creatures. That means you entrap them and you sell them, whether for meat or for entertainment. And of course, selling meat. To sell meat means you have to either catch, rear, and finally to kill them so they can sell their meat. You should not be involved in occupations involving intoxicants. Now, here intoxicants can mean things like heroin, marijuana, and all those kind of stuff. Intoxicants can also mean what they call liquor and all that, because causes intoxication as well as heedlessness in the person consumes it. And of course, lastly, poisons. Poisons kill. So these are the list of 5 occupations that we should avoid so that we perform blameless actions. In this particular sutta regarding people from the bamboo area, 𝓤𝓷𝓲𝓼𝓷 Sutta, the Buddha talks about how we should practice the 5 precepts in great detail. And here, this page talks about panatipata. You should avoid the destruction of life or killing of living beings. And in practicing the 5 precepts, one should reflect that I want to live and don't want to die. I want to be happy and recoil from pain. Since this is so, if someone were to take my life, I wouldn't like that. But others also want to live and don't want to die. They want to be happy and recoil from pain. So if I were to take the life of someone else, they wouldn't like that either. Seems very commonsensical, but some people may lack that. The thing that is disliked by me is also disliked by others. Since I dislike this thing, how can I inflict it on someone else? So reflecting in this way, they give up killing living creatures themselves, but not just practicing to give up themselves. they also encourage others to give up killing living creatures. They praise the action of giving up of killing living creatures. So these are the three things. So their bodily behavior is purified in 3 points. So in the practice of the 5 precepts, we are not just talking about avoiding killing. We need to encourage others to give up killing. We need to praise the action of giving up killing living creatures. And this is only talking about the first precept, paratipata. Now moving on, adinadana, taking what is not given or stealing. If someone were to steal from me, I wouldn't like that. But if I were to steal from someone else, they wouldn't like that either. The thing that is disliked by me is also disliked by others. Since I dislike this thing, how can I inflict it on someone else? Reflecting in this way, they give up stealing themselves. They encourage others to give up stealing, and they praise the giving up of stealing. So their bodily behavior is purified in these 3 points. So this is quite comprehensive reflection. Now moving on, kamisu miccācara, the abstention from sexual misconduct. If someone were to have sexual relations with my wives, I wouldn't like it. But if I were to have sexual relations with someone else's wives, he wouldn't like that either. The thing that is disliked by me is also disliked by others. Since I dislike this thing, how can I inflict it on others? Reflecting in this way, they give up sexual misconduct themselves. They encourage others to give up sexual misconduct, and they praise the giving up of sexual misconduct. So their bodily behavior is purified in 3 points. Now we move on to speech, musavada, speaking falsehood or lying. If someone were to distort my meaning by lying, I wouldn't like that. But if I were to distort someone else's meaning by lying, they wouldn't like it either. The thing that is disliked by me is also disliked by someone else. Since I dislike this thing, how can I inflict it on others? Reflecting in this way, they give up lying themselves, and they encourage others to give up lying. And they praise the giving up of lying. And so their behavior is purified in 3 points. Now, in the commentary, we talk about reflections before we perform certain actions. And in this particular sutta, the 𝓤𝓾𝓷𝓷𝓷 sutta, the Buddha was advising young Rahula, the Buddha's son, who had become a novice. What do you think, Rahula? What is a mirror for? And Rahula said, for reflection, sir. In the same way, Rahula, bodily actions, verbal actions, mental actions are to be done with repeated reflection. Now, when you want to do a bodily action, you should reflect on it. This bodily action I want to do, would it lead to self-affliction or self-harm, to the affliction of others, or to both? Would it be an unskillful bodily action with painful consequences, painful results? If on reflection, you know that it will lead to self-affliction, to the affliction of others, or to both, it would be an unskillful bodily action with painful consequences and painful results. And any bodily action of that sort is absolutely unfit for you to do. So this is the step-by-step reflection where the Buddha advised young novice Rahula to do. Now, when you want to do a bodily, verbal, and mental action, now earlier the 2 slides were talking about, give example of the bodily. The same process goes through for verbal actions and later for mental actions. So whenever you want to do a bodily action, verbal action, or mental action, you should reflect on it while you're doing an action and after you have done. So before you do, that means when you want to do, before you do, all these 3, body, verbal and mental action, you should reflect on it. When you are doing it, you should reflect on these aspects. And after you have completed the action, you should still repeat the reflection. Thus, 𝓷𝓾𝓷𝓷, you should train yourself. I will purify my bodily actions through repeated reflection. I will purify my verbal actions through repeated reflection. I will purify my mental actions through repeated reflection. That's how you should train yourself. And long after, Venerable 𝓷𝓾𝓷𝓷, the Samanera 𝓷𝓾𝓷 grew up and became a Venerable 𝓷𝓾𝓷. He attained arahantship through the advice of Buddha and many of the Buddha's learned disciples. And in doing good, in this Dhammapada verse 18, a person who actually cultivates good and all that, the Buddha says in Dhammapada verse 18, Ita nandati, pecha nandati, papokari ubayata nandati, papang me katanti nandati, biyo nandati, sugating gato. The doer of good delights here and hereafter. He delights in both the worlds. The thought, good have I done, delights him. And he delights even more when gone to realms of bliss. So the benefits of doing wholesome things is you get the results here and hereafter. So that was the coverage of the blessings number 16 and 17 in the Mangala Sutta for this morning. 𝓟𝓷𝓲𝓪 𝓟𝓾𝓷𝓷𝓷. May the good doctrine long endure. Sabbe satta sukhi hontu. Back to the MC.
Thank you, Brother Ananda Fong, for your insightful Dharma sharing. As Brother Ananda Fong said, we need to take care of our relatives. We should provide assistance, help, and support when our relatives experience hardship or illnesses. We should also encourage our relatives to perform dana, where the fruits can also be experienced here and now. By doing wholesome deeds, our relatives can gain merits on their own and can take care of themselves. Brother Ananda also mentioned about blameless life. To be blameless in action, we should refrain from performing unwholesome actions, and we should observe the 5 precepts. Thank you, Brother Ananda Fong, again for your timely reminder. Dear brothers and sisters in the Dhamma, for the past 1 hour, we chanted the words of the Buddha and we listened to the Dhamma sharing. During this time, our minds stayed focused and concentrated. No unwholesome thoughts came to our mind. During such time, we accrue abundance of merits. These merits we dedicate to our protective devas, and may they too eventually attain the perfect bliss of Nibbana. By virtue of these merits, may they continue to bless us with good health, happiness, prosperity, and above all, wisdom. Let us also recall to mind the names of our loved ones who are no longer with us. If they are reborn in the celestial place, may too shower us their choicest blessings and protection. However, in the event that they need our merits to help them in their spiritual well-being, may these merits reach them and help them in their spiritual well-being. May we be blessed with the company of the good and the wise. May we not follow the ways of the foolish. May we be blessed with good opportunities, friends, and good teachers who can guide us along the path of the Dhamma until we reach the final liberation Nibbana. Akasatta cha bhummatta dewa naga mahittika punyang tang anumoditva chirang rakkantu loka sasanang ettavata cha amhehi sambatang punya sampadang sabbe dewa, sabbe bhuta, sabbe satta anumodantu, sabba sampatti siddhya. Idang me nyati nang hotu sukita hontu nyatayo. Idang me nyati nang hotu sukita hontu nyatayo. Idang me nyati nang hotu sukita hontu nyatayo. Imina punya kammena mame bala samagamo satang samagamo hotu yava nibbana pattiya. That is all for today's Sunday Pūjā and Dhamma sharing. Thank you all for joining us today. Do join us next week for another inspiring journey to seek the truth as taught by the Buddha. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.